Okay, so here we go again with a little bit more about the aura as seen through the eyes of ancient history. And it's interesting to note that there's quite a bit of display and technology being revealed about the human aura through indigenous people. There is the concept that perhaps in times not so long ago, by that I mean hundreds or thousands of years, the planet might have had a different type of electromagnetic conductivity, where during higher conductive times there would have been an easier method to be able to actually perceive the human aura. It didn't take so much effort. Right now we're in less conductive times on planet Earth, which means that you need special circumstances to see an aura. Quite often, these might be in religious places where, there's a focus on cleaning the atmosphere. It also can happen out in nature, although the sunlight can sometimes be an inhibition to seeing. It's usually in dimmer lit types of circumstances, actually seeing the aura happens. You got 5 senses. And for each of those 5 physical senses, there's also 5 electrical senses. So not only is there electrical vision, there's electrical smell, there's electrical hearing, there's electrical taste, and electrical touch. So what we're exploring now is the aura. Part of the perception of the aura is being able to see electromagnetically. In another video, we'll talk about, how to see the aura and how to sense it. But it's very worthwhile practice to dive into if you are trying to increase your energy level, because your aura is kind of like a balloon. The more energy you get, the more it expands. But if you have ruptures or different things attaching to your aura, they could be working counteractive to your building up an energy. Quite often it'll happen as somebody kind of starts to build energy, some problem from long ago that they thought was solved or is put into the past comes back into the future. That's because your electromagnetic pressure brought it back into the front, and it can be pointing out that there's a kind of a weak spot. And there's also how to clean and wipe a person's aura, which is a lot of fun too. But let's get back into it. So I think our last slide here was 15 and about the snakes and all. Ooh, good stuff. Now we're looking here. This is an Egyptian one. You've got a couple headdresses. I spoke before about high levels of electromagnetic processing do cause, just like any kind of machine that's working, there will be a necessary exhaust system that's happening. You eat and you fart. That's kind of like a bit of an exhaust system, or a car engine runs and it's got an exhaust pipe. When the human faculty is put into high gear, there will be a lot of exhaust that's created by it. So you can see these types of, it almost looks like 2 kind of scarves coming off of the base of their hats, which would represent the kind of letting off of the static, or the not effluence exactly, but the byproducts of what's going on in them mentally. You can see that they are being activated by the sun, and that this has to do with the higher level of development. And they've got a couple little people hanging out with them, which would indicate that maybe these Egyptians were of the giant tribe of Egyptians, because there were Egyptians that were 32 feet tall, and regular sized people would be sitting on their laps. You can also get some indication of their electromagnetic process by the seats that they're on in their feet. You got to get the idea here is the human becomes more electromagnetically charged as you evolve, as you elevate, as you develop, as you become more of a vessel or crucible for high energies. Then the whole of your body comes into the participation of the conducting of that energy. So there's interesting things not only to look at the head level, but also all the way through, coming out the hands and then also out the feet. Let's see what the next slide is. Oh, here's some more Egyptian one. Very interesting indeed. So this guy here, we saw from the Buddhist red hats, there was these lines coming out from the temple on the red hat, and that's Buddhist. This is going thousands of years earlier to Egypt, and on the hat there's these lines coming from the soft spot. You've got the uraeus, which is the snake that's coming out the front of the guy's head. This isn't exactly the Kundalini, but it has to do with the idea of having an awakened mental faculty. So he has a snake coming out of his head, and she has what looks like it's almost like a snake's head, but it's attached to a bird body. And you can see there's a platform with a solar disc, and we've had this theme of your cup running over, or the head of the human opening up and being able to accept energies in. Sometimes the bird represents the concept of the developed mental body. And to talk about this now, this is a little bit outside of the aura, but you've got your physical body, then you've got your a planetary body, and then you've got a mental body, and then an emotional body, and it goes on into higher levels of development. A mental body has the ability to astral travel. So does your planetary body. Well, actually, the true description is your astral body or your planetary body, which is a charged up soul, has the ability to astral travel, but a much more superior form of movement outside of your body with one of these subtler bodies is with your mental body. That mental body's capacity to travel and transit around in the astral light outside of your body is sometimes depicted by this bird, and they have a lot of bird stuff going on. Here is a power posture existing where you have there's a reciprocal wiring diagram between men and women at an electromagnetic level. When we do the ROM tours, we focus in very specifically on, which hand is transmissive, which hand is receptive, and we do these types of postures. Actually, before we go into the ROM for the Royal Ontario Museum for a tour, we go outside and do Egyptian postures out on this big lawn and charge things up. So what they're doing is they're involved in a electromagnetic exchange, which is enhancing of power. Even if you want with a friend, it doesn't matter. It could be two ladies or two men, or you could do it a man and a lady. But you take on some of these postures that you see and you hold on to it, and they can be powerful postures. Too bad this picture isn't more clear. This is a wonderful, I would suppose this is an African tribe. So what you have here is a big looping yellow and green around the head of this young person, and a silver mask. So the silver is like a cleaning, disinfecting type of energy. You can use, if you're cleaning your house, like smudging and doing things like that with incense. There's a whole array of electromagnetic color projections that you can put into your space also that can be enormously enhancing, because after all, the first language of the creator is color. That's the first language of the creator, and it's very primary. Where in one color there's a whole, in a sense, kind of like universe of understanding. With this particular individual, the yellow and green represents healing. And I'll just like to talk about color just for a moment. There's 5 fundamental colors to think about with the human aura, although there's millions of them. But looking at the 5 fundamental colors, you've got white, red, blue, yellow, and green. And if you think about these as different types of energy, the red, white, and blue colors are kind of primary building block colors. And then the yellow and green colors have an enhanced ability that sits upon the red, white, and blue. Kind of like flames need something to burn. You need logs or kindling or wood, and that's like the red, white, and blue. And the flame is like the yellow and the green. That's one type of analogy. But another interesting consideration is if you just look at how to talk about red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue, we 3 build. Actually, that's a anagram of red, white, and blue. You take the letters, you mix them together, and it's We Three Build. So red, white, and blue are kind of like fundamental. So, and yellow and green have this itinerant nature. If I were to describe it, like if you look at forms of life, trees, plants, what's called the flora of the planet is mostly what you call stationary. It stays in a fixed location. And then there is another form of life, which is animal form. Yeah, and so mammals, for example. And mammals are a form of life, but they have the ability to move around. They're itinerant. They have versatility. And it's kind of the same with the red, white, and blue, is that they're kind of anchoring colors where the yellow and green, they can move around. One of the properties with yellow and green is healing. So this young fella here is representing a person who would have a healing state going on in their aura. And then the question is, well, what is this flash? Well, if there's healing process going on, typically at an electromagnetic level, healing indicates that there is a higher energy exerting its purifying capabilities upon lower energy. When a higher energy moves into a district, two things can happen. The lower energy is tenacious and polluting, and therefore the finer energy will want to retreat. On the other hand, a finer healing type of energy can come into a circumstance, and the lower energy finds the high fine energy intolerable and will depart. So in that interaction of something high meeting something low, you could say that the high energy kind of burns off the lower energy and causes it to retreat. So this little red flare up at the edge of the top of this person's aura is representing, if they're in a healing process, bringing some higher kinds of energy in, it's like poof, they just burnt something off. So it has its own kind of purifying, cleansing capability. I love this picture. It's I think it's from National Geographic. And I wish it was more clear. Okay, some more Egyptian postures. Now this is starting to get into some pretty heavy-duty ancient Egypt, where you can see more clearly she's got the phoenix on her head. Actually, this one's very similar to this one, interestingly enough. You got on the lady's side, she's got the horns with the solar disc sitting on a platform, sitting on a bird with a snake's head. Here we've got another solar disc in between the horns. And horns are an interesting thing because that could also be interpreted as, we're talking about this thing, these lines coming from the temple. And as I've mentioned before, there's all these filaments coming out from the human head, and they can take on different forms. So, you get Vikings with the horns and these different hats. What they're hearkening back to is the fact that there are different specific electromagnetic shapes that happen above people's heads. On the gentleman here, you can see that there's an elongation of the head. At the top, there's like this bobble, and then it even comes out as chin. So you have like this type of whole head engagement. Quite often that has to do with this is talking about sun level stuff. I've had people say they see this in my aura occasionally. I've seen it in some people's aura. So you get this tall conical kind of hat with a bobble on the top of it. Again, here they've got these different types of pectorals. An interesting thing about the Egyptians is that in some of the more older Egyptian art, all their fingers are the same length, which is kind of bizarre because they clearly have a capability of a very high definition of artistic rendering of the objects and subjects that they're presenting. And so you might think that maybe all their fingers were the same length. The pectoral is another interesting part here, and their electromagnetism would literally light up the pectoral like they were wearing lights around their chest. Okay, so this is actually the papal hat. This is the hat that the Pope wears. You can see the crown, or the crucifix at the top. Now you can see there's 3 different layers different levels here of, it's almost like a triple crown. The triple crown. You can see here, this guy has one main going up the middle and one at the front and one at the back. That's almost like a triple idea there. And then you have these two kinds of tails, like of a sash coming out from the hat. This one here is gold. And as I talked before, I'm going to jump back to, this guy's got silver around his head, and this is gold. Now, the understanding of the differences between silver and gold is a very interesting concept when you're looking at it electromagnetically. One of the main kind of religious ways to consider it is that gold is stationary and set, and silver is excited and moving around and powerful. And each one of these, like in general terms with electricity, you've got positive and negative ions. That's one way. And then with energy, you've got transmission and reception. That's another kind of dualism within energy. There's another dualism in energy, and it's gold and silver, and their behaviors are quite different. Gold is attractive, and silver is transmissive, if I were to give it some colors. And that's usually once somebody has been looking at the human aura or electromagnetically becoming sensitive, beginning to sense silver and gold energies becomes a real kind of foundation point to knowing your energies. Okay, this looks like kind of maybe early Renaissance or 12th century, maybe before that. And this is a more crude kind of description. You can see like here, this is a highly detailed examination of the electromagnetic radiations. And I spoke before about there being high points in conductivity on planet Earth and people being very focused on electromagnetism. And then I said, and then civilizations, they will then go through their cycle where they kind of lose the knowledge. So this is an artistic representation representing when the knowledge and the perception and understanding of the human aura was not as acute or as defined. But these people here, they have a halo around their head, and the idea being is that whatever room they're in is being graced with a presence. In the world of electromagnetism, people see things electromagnetically sometimes. You can see an aura, but there's also, things in the air. Quite often, when somebody sees something electromagnetically, their brain will reach to try and put a reference upon it, to try and go, what is that I'm looking at? And so typically within Christian iconography, you will have, if there is something electromagnetically seen by someone who's a Christian, they'll either interpret it as being, Jesus showed up, or an angel showed up, or it was the Virgin Mary, or something like this. You take you take a Buddhist and you show them the same thing electromagnetically. Actually, I think there's a joke inside of this. There's a Buddhist Islamic person and a Christian in a room, and then an angel shows up. What does each one see? They would each kind of interpret it from their own religious dogma point of view. But what this little cloud in the air is representing is that there was some type of high presence there. And this is one of the ways that the human can have their aura and their faculties turned on, is that there's the self-generation of energy within, meditating and doing high work and connecting to nature and trying to strive to be the best person that you can and developing your character. That's kind of like the internal work that can help to start to turn on the systems. But there's nothing like having an external assistance in your development process. And that's where you start to get into talking about attracting to yourself nature spirits, or there are in the quieter places, not necessarily so much in the city, but in the mountains and in rivers and lakes and in forested area, there are quite often some beautiful concentrations of energy that exist. typically that energy that exists will in many ways encourage certain types of plants to grow or even attract certain kinds of animals. But for a human to participate with these things can be helping to activate that it can be energizing and cleansing of your aura. And that's a little bit about the description of the planetary side of electromagnetic enhancement that's available to the human. And so these guys here, it looks like they're in a state of reception, like they're like kind of got their hands out and they're trying to receive what's coming in. And maybe it's a little baby Jesus, but who knows? It might just be something from the unseen worlds. Here's a little bit more ornate one. Oh, I think this is a typical look of St. Francis Xavier. It's been a little while since I've seen it. Who's considered a saint. And he's got a very ornate look around his head. You can see this same type of aura radiation in Hinduism. Around Shiva's head. It's interesting once you start looking at things electromagnetically and within the religious iconography that the religions, the great religions of the world, their iconography starts to talk more the same language, where their dogma or their scriptures would be perhaps disparate in the stories that they're telling. When you look at the art form, they start to actually coalesce together to be speaking more to the same thing rather than different things. I guess I'm not a historian, so I can't say whether this is Renaissance period or not, but this is gold based, and so you can almost be given a look at someone, and when they've got a gold type of halo around them, you can be kind of sure that it might be from the Judaic or from the Christian religions, where Islamic typically more has fire or silver expression. And this one here definitely has the ornate description. Actually, again, you can see the filigree on the inner layer has more like a floral type of pattern representing that planetary development. And then on the edge, it looks a little bit more like flames, representing that coronal aspect or the solar level of development. Very cool. King Tut. There's the guy right now. Who knew that his style of eyebrow would come into fashion, in 2021. So he's got two things. He's got two snakes on his head. One's the cobra, the uraeus, and the other one, interestingly enough, is a snake, but it's got the head of a hawk. There's a whole lot to talk about King Tut, but you've got these, and obviously gold, right? So you've got the gold color there, and these stripes. So and there's a look around the eyes. So it's not uncommon when you start to look at people electromagnetically that you'll start to see certain aspects of their features standing out very prominently. And it can be like these lines. It can be, especially features around the eyes. It can be quite spectacular. Here we move to, I would guess that this is indigenous North American. And this is the different types of feathered bonnets seen from behind. And, so you get this kind of circular cup kind of idea. I would think that these types of representations have, when you've got the cup and it's open like that, that's more talking about connecting to planetary frequencies. And they'd be wearing these ones during the dance that they do. Maybe this is even from a powwow, and they've got like a feather shooting off, not unlike that African one where the red was going. So this could be talking about, high mental activities. You might even have it happen yourself, where there's like a little flash happening, if you're meditating or you're someplace quiet and there's a little silver flash. That's something going on in your aura. And let's do one more here. Ooh, boo, 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 boo. This one's really cool. So you've got, this is definitely a power posture. This is the type of postures that we sit in when we get together to go visit the Royal Ontario Museum. and we'd kind of take this long distance look. We'd, you could even imagine yourself, dressed in blue or having blue skin with this. The person in the middle, they've got Uraeus coming out, almost looks like the King Tut. He's got the circle, and then you have this other amazing crown. You'll get in a bunch of different Egyptology types of literature, you get these concepts of, the upper Nile or the lower Nile, and, they kind of attach, well, here, I'm just trying to describe where I come from. I look at these types of images for practicality. What does it mean to me? Can I do something about it? What can I do that brings it out of the realm of philosophy and into an actual personal experience, rather than, just filling my head with some type of library philosophical concepts that, it's just so much more information to hold. Interesting, they're sitting on a chair that has this little red box down below. This is what would have been for, in their time, they're like in a car. And that's an atomic platform. And they used to have in Egypt these platforms that they could sit upon, and down below would be like a nuclear processor. This platform would float in the air, and they would float along without touching the ground along ley lines. Egypt is so cool. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to just wrap this up here. That was another little run inside of it. Exciting. Thanks for all the responses to the video so far. We're at slide 25. I don't know if we're going to get through the whole 100 of them. If you want me to keep going, say so. Or I could jump track and we could go over and start talking about clairvoyance and the 7 levels of thinking that go on, and at what level does clairvoyance begin for you. But thank you for tomorrow, today, tribe. I hope it's been good. Talk to you soon. This is Holden. Bye.